Hey, before we get started, let me ask you something. Is your leadership or management team burning out? It's a serious question because burnout at the top, hey, it spreads fast. It shows up in poor decision-making, toxic culture, and disengaged teams. But when leaders are grounded, energized, and supported, everything changes. That's the work I do with executives and their managers. I help them step off the hamster wheel and put well-being back at the center. The result? Leaders who make better choices, teams that are more engaged, and companies where people actually want to give their best. And that's where everyone wins. Your people, your culture, and your bottom line. If you're ready to build a healthier, burnout-resistant, and more effective leadership culture, hey, I'd love to help. Find me on LinkedIn or reach me on my website at marcelschwantes.com. Welcome to the Love in Action Podcast. I'm your host, executive coach, speaker, and author, Marcel Schwantes. I believe that when we show up with our full humanity to work and lead from a place of love, joy, purpose, care, and inclusion, it's going to make a radical difference in your leadership, your business, and your bottom line. This is a show about actionable, practical love, the verb, as a leadership and business strategy. Let's get rolling. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Hey, if you're a first-time listener, we really appreciate you choosing to listen to us. I know there's literally millions of podcasts out there, so we are so thankful that you are here. So I don't know if you know this, if you're a longtime listener, probably not, because it's not a habit for me to brag. So allow me to brag just a little bit, okay? We started this show back in 2019. You know, the first few episodes, crickets, right? I mean, we were building a following. Well, I'm happy to say that even if you have stuck around for us for 5-6 years, okay, this applies to you as much as it does to me, okay? The Love in Action podcast is now heard in 165 countries. I checked the stats earlier. And by the way, one or two of those countries I didn't even know existed, okay? So that's kind of cool. And we are currently ranked in the top 2% of shows worldwide. That's a big deal too. Woohoo, right? And then the last thing, this one was a surprise. I just found out that we are ranked number 33 among the 100 best leadership podcasts. That one snuck in there. I had no idea. And that's pretty cool right there. All right, so thank you again for coming back, for believing in our work, in our message. And please, we appreciate it if you could share the episode with others, let a friend, a colleague, a manager, the CEO of your company know about us, because this is truly mission. And, we'd love to expand this Love in Action movement globally. Okay, enough of the humble brag. I don't even know if that sounded humble, but okay. We are I think you'd agree with me that the world has drastically changed in the last 5 years. I mean, even before COVID, maybe longer than 5, maybe 5 to 10, okay? And with that, leadership has to and must change with the times, with the transitions, with the evolutions, with the changes, okay? Leadership can't stagnate and stay the same as it was 10 years ago, all right? So my guest today is Dr. Jaime Goff. She's the author of The Secure Leader, and the subtitle is just as important, okay? Discover the hidden forces that shape your leadership story and how to change them. If you're watching on YouTube, that's the cover. Okay, so Dr. Goff says real leadership doesn't start with strategy. It doesn't start with all your techniques, all your systems and all that, right? It starts with self-understanding. In other words, understanding who you really are. So she draws from her background in psychology as well as executive coaching. And Jaime talks about how our earliest experiences really shape the way we lead, right? Why some leaders, they're micromanagers and they want to hang on to all the control. Other leaders may want to seek approval. And why other leaders are just, they're grounded in calm confidence and you can rely on them, right? So Jamie says that so much of that has to do with our inner story. And we're going to really get into that. You know, the stories that we tell ourselves over our lifetimes. And, and some of these stories, says Jamie, need to be rewritten. And she even used the word deconstructed. So we can lead with more authenticity. We can lead with more purpose, more strength, right? So I'm telling you here, okay, strap on your seatbelt and get ready to rethink what makes a truly secure leader, because it's not what you imagine. All right. So a proper intro to our distinguished guest. Dr. Jaime Goff is the founder of the Empathic Leader, where she specializes in helping leaders unlock their full potential through executive coaching, insightful workshops, and thought-provoking keynotes. Jamie holds a PhD in couple and family therapy from Michigan State University and a graduate certificate in executive coaching from Southern Methodist University. With over 25 years of experience as a psychotherapist, professor, and executive coach, she is passionate about helping leaders craft empowering stories that help them become more secure. And Dr. Jaime Goff now joins us. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marcel. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise. So we start the show this way with every guest. You ready?
I'm ready.
What's your story?
Such a big question, isn't it? Um, I think it's important to maybe share a little bit about my, personal story to inform kind of how I got to this place in terms
Sure.
of my professional story. And so, I grew up in West Virginia, the Northern Panhandle, which is more kind of associated with like the Rust Belt of the country now, not so much Appalachia, but more the Northern Panhandle, kind of Midwestern part of the state. In a very blue collar family. I'm a first generation college student,
Hmm.
and growing up, um, my parents. I grew up in the '80s,
I'm
and
an
so
80s
there's some
child too. Okay.
yeah, there's some common themes, right, among those of us who grew up in the '80s. I think just in terms of parenting was different back then than it
Right.
is now, very much so. And I just remember growing up. I mean, I had a good, childhood and family experience. There wasn't anything particularly, traumatic about it for me, but I really was kind of a lone wolf, if you
Mm,
will,
mm.
as a kid. And, I probably like many parents in the '80s, I don't ever remember like being read to or really my parents playing with me, and I was kind of expected in many ways as I was growing up to kind of take care of myself, right? Like make my own breakfast as soon as I could, my own lunch. I spent most of my days as a child by myself in the woods somewhere. Like my parents didn't know where I was. I was, who
Yeah.
knows, right? When my dad whistled,
Uh-huh.
because he had one of those really loud whistles, that's when I knew to come home for dinner.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I grew up.
Yeah. There's a term for I think most 80s childs, right? Latchkey kid, right?
Latchkey kids,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't really think anything of that, but I think what I learned from that in terms of how that impacted me is that I learned to be incredibly independent and rely on myself for a lot of things. And then some ways I'm really grateful for that, right?
Mm.
Like I there were some really positive aspects of that. But as I kind of, went to college and majored in psychology and then did my graduate education and couple and family therapy, I started to see that there were maybe some not so positive outcomes associated with that in terms of, especially when I was in my first leadership role and, in my, first, as I was in romantic relationships, right? Kind of those first relationships
Yeah.
that maybe there were some elements of that experience that weren't quite as helpful, and that I was very controlling. I wanted to be in control at all times, and I really thought that I could only count on myself. And I really did have that whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, and like that's what it's all about. Don't depend on anybody else. It's really all about you being a high performer, proving yourself. And that was kind of my approach to
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
and to relationships and initially to leadership as well.
Mm.
And so I remember kind of related to that. And the very first time I stepped into a formal leadership role, it was as a department chair at my university. And I don't know, I was very young. I think I maybe was 31 or 32, maybe. And I had an administrative assistant, and I was so controlling. Just I wouldn't let her have access to my calendar. I wouldn't let her like plan like the things that were in her job description, right? That she was meant to be doing. And she finally said to me one day, Jamie, you have got to let me do my job. And that was really one of the first times, especially in leadership, when I started to think, maybe some of these dynamics that I know exist in like personal relationships, right? Because of my training,
Yeah.
I have a PhD in couple and family therapy. I know systems theory. I know how
Right.
relationships work. That's when I first started realizing that, these dynamics show up between leaders and their teams as well. And what I'm doing and being really controlling and overly independent is not helping her.
Right.
And if I continue on this path, it's ultimately going to hurt me
Yeah.
as a leader and hurt the people I lead.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, you kind of open up the can of worms. They're
Yeah.
starting to wiggle out. This is great because I mean we're gonna so let's get into
Mm,
the main theme of the book. We're gonna
mhm.
drop terms on you guys, but Jamie will explain it in more or less psychological terms. Like we're gonna drop things about attachment theory and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up. Okay, why
Yes.
this book? Why
hmm
now?
So it's something that I have really been thinking about for a long time because I think that fundamentally, who we are as leaders is so influenced by kind of those core beliefs about ourselves and others that we carry with us from our earliest experiences. It's not like we show up in a leadership role and we sit down and think, okay, how am I going to be a leader? That's not really how it happens. You might do that, but you're going to be heavily influenced by everything else that's happened in your life before that time. And I think it's just so incredibly important to understand that and have that self-awareness so that you can then begin to tackle some of the themes of those beliefs that may not be serving you well in a leadership role. And so that's why I wanted to write this book and get this message out there. And in terms of timing, it just seemed like it was resonating differently,
Yeah.
um, now than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So just to contextualize here and bring more perspective to our listeners, you're basically saying that leadership begins with these early attachments
hmm
from our maybe our childhood, our upbringing, family of
hmm
origin issues, and
Yeah.
then those stories shape our current leadership style.
hmm
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think that, for those who aren't familiar with like attachment theory, which, I imagine there are quite a few listeners who aren't, at its most fundamental, kind of basic level, what attachment theory posits is that the most fundamental human need is connection.
Okay.
And especially early in our lives, we survive or develop compensatory behaviors based on the type of connection we experience with our caregivers or lack of connection.
Yeah.
And kind of through those experiences, I think there are two fundamental questions that form those really core beliefs in us. The first being, am I worthy? And the second being, are others trustworthy?
Mm.
And based on our early childhood experiences, we kind of develop beliefs around those two questions that continue to inform how we relate to other people in the world on both a personal and professional level. And it certainly shows up in the way that we lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's work with the first one. Am I worthy?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what happens here
Mm-hmm.
when you don't feel you're worthy growing up? Then how does
Mm-hmm.
that play a role in
Yeah.
shaping our leadership style?
Mm-hmm. I think there are kind of two different ways that belief about maybe not being worthy, right? And that's about like, do people respond? Am I worth enough that people provide care and love and respect and treat me with dignity, right? And on the one hand, if you have early childhood experiences where your caregivers are pretty dismissive or they just don't engage with you a lot, that can develop a sense of, well, I'm not worth like their time. And it's almost like I need to prove
Mm,
myself and I've got to take care of myself. So it can lead to a lot of control and perfectionism, right?
wow.
So it's
That's your
kind of,
story in a way.
yes, and that's my story. Yeah, that closely relates to my story. So I've a lot of control and perfectionism, and I want to prove myself because maybe if I'm good enough, they'll notice, right?
Mm,
Like I'm
mm,
looking. So you can see that. On the other hand, some people have experiences in childhood where they're raised in really chaotic and inconsistent environments where they might get attention from time to time, but not on a consistent basis. And sometimes the attention they do get is inappropriate, right? So that's like the screaming and the yelling and the inappropriate like punishment for a very young child, or even like inappropriate affection where you're like forcing a kid to be affectionate. It just can be very confusing and chaotic.
yeah.
And so for those individuals, they also are feeling like, okay, there must be something wrong with me because sometimes this person responds, sometimes they don't. I can't figure out what the difference is here. And so many times what happens is that they learn to kind of become more extreme in their bids for attention.
Mm,
So, whereas the other example I gave, like as a child, I would just kind of go in a corner and like go to my bedroom and be quiet and try to just like not be like not attract too much negative, not attract negative attention.
right.
This person is going to like, they're the kid who's going to throw the temper tantrums, right? Because they're trying to get attention, any kind of attention from their caregivers. And so then in adulthood,
Yeah.
for that person, it becomes a lot of approval seeking validation, wanting more than anything for people to like them, wanting to be the fun boss, if you think about it in terms of leadership,
Mm.
and really struggling to give feedback and to grow their teams because more than anything, they just want to be liked. And that's what they're really striving for is that approval and validation.
I know that there's people listening going, that's me. That's me.
Hmm.
And to your example of how, you realized that you were being shaped into this controlling,
Hmm.
maybe, I don't know, were you a micromanager as well?
Yes.
Controlling, right? I'm thinking,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think it's important to understand how do you get to arrive at that moment, at that aha moment of like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, this is who I have become. So you can do something about it.
Hmm.
What was your aha moment? How did you arrive at that, like that, I don't know, that self-awareness blast?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the story I told, I mean, part of it was that team member saying to me, like, you've got to let me do my job.
Oh,
And
okay.
that was really eye-opening for me in that moment. And for me, given my kind of background in education, I was like, okay, like I've always had a sense that I have a bit of an avoidant attachment style.
Mm.
And so I knew that already. And I was aware of how that might be impacting my personal relationships. And we talked to, at the time, my husband about that. And we're both avoidant. So that creates interesting dynamics. Um, but, but I hadn't really applied it to leadership. And so when I had that kind of aha moment, because she shared that with me, that's when I started really exploring like, okay, what are some of the things that I do with my clients, my therapy clients, right? The couples and the families that I'm working with, and then also just in my personal relationship with my husband that can apply here in the leadership context and in the leadership space.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
that's when I started to had to be more intentional and more thoughtful about, reflecting on how I was showing up and then thinking about what I could do to show up differently and to begin becoming more secure in the way that I related to my workplace and the people I worked with every day. I was already kind of working on becoming more secure in
Mm.
my personal relationships, but then I was like, I need to do this. I need to really be intentional about doing this in the work context as well.
Mm. So much of this is in the realm of blind spots, and then having the courage then to address your blind spots once you raise your level of awareness of what holds
Mm-hmm.
you back. In your case, it was the employee that basically, I mean, confronted you, right?
Yeah,
And
which
that
was
was a light
so
bulb moment
courageous
for
of
you.
her. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But so many of us don't have
yeah.
the benefit of somebody, gently confronting us
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "Hey, I'm going to set a limit on you here and draw the line on, the boundaries thing,
Yeah.
and not have you do this to me because it's affecting how I work, and because a lot of managers might see that as, oh, you're being, you're undermining my authority and
Yeah.
not doing as I say, whatever, whatever is in their mind. So how do we? Are there any techniques, exercises
Mm-hmm.
that we could utilize to bring that more to the surface?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I have, and I, talk about
Mhm.
it some in the book, but like on my website, there's, an assessment that people can take to kind of get an idea where they fall on that in terms of their attachment style and how they
Yeah.
might be showing up. And then that's also in the book as well. But then in the book, I talk about once you need to start with having some awareness of, for me, like where you fit, like what attachment style am I is most dominant for me? How am I showing up most of the time?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to have that from an assessment that you complete yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you're the one answering the questions. So no one else is like you can't ignore it, right? If you're the one that answers the questions in the way that you do. So once you have that awareness, then it's a process, I think, of being really reflective and making intentional time. And so in the book, I talk about working to deconstruct whatever that kind of story, that belief system might be that could be holding you back and getting in the way. So I walk my, readers and, my clients, my coaching clients, when it's appropriate and relevant, I walk them through that process of like really digging in and trying to understand, okay, this is how you're behaving as a leader and how you're showing up. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
Let's explore that. Let's dig a little deeper and see where that might be coming from.
Yeah.
What, like I mentioned with my story, some of that I kind of learned and picked up as a kid has been beneficial to me. I mean, I've been able to be really successful, and I think it's partly because I'm really driven
Right.
and really independent, right? And that's good. And those are parts of that story that it's okay. Like those are good things. I want to keep those. But there are certainly behaviors that have not served me well
Yeah.
and are no longer serving me well, and I need to shift that.
Mm.
So I think it's that process of, gaining some self-awareness and then being really intentional about digging in and deconstructing, going a little deeper, see where that comes from
Hmm.
and whether or not it's helpful to you anymore.
Mm. Can we address a few more blind spots? And maybe you
Hmm.
can drop other attachment styles for
Yes, yeah,
people
yeah.
listening. Go, okay,
Hmm.
this is me, right? What would be other examples of those
Yeah,
stories or styles?
yeah. So I've been talking mostly about kind of the avoidant style because that's what I am. That's kind of tends to be how I can show up if I'm not careful about it. And so that's your like really controlling, micromanaging, like and in the book and when I do workshops, I often talk about the character Miranda Priestley. If folks have seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, like that's her, right?
Mm.
Like, and it's an extreme example where she like basically thinks everybody else is an idiot, right? Like she's very contemptuous to her employees and thinks that people are just totally incompetent and no one else can do anything as well as she can, right? And
Right.
as a leader, that means that and I've had coaching clients like this. What happens is you just kind of ignore your team members and you see them more as a nuisance, and you certainly don't invest in them as people or in empowering and growing them.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the avoidant, insecure avoidant style that we've been talking about a little bit more. There's also the insecure anxious style. And in the book and when I do workshops, I use, there are probably some others, but I think one of the a great example of this is Michael Scott from The
Oh,
Office,
yeah.
right?
That's a
Like
great example.
all this guy wants is for people to like him.
Yeah.
And so what he does is he creates a really unstructured, chaotic environment where people really don't have any direction because he's too concerned with people liking him and being fun, and being praised, that he can't lead. It prevents him from leading effectively. And so that's where, that's that type of leader where it's like, I just want everyone to like me. I want to be fun and I want to be cool. And again, people end up feeling directionless. And it is really focused for anxious, insecure, anxious leaders. It's also focused on them. So it's not so much about like I want to be cool and I want you to like me because I really value you as a person. It's more because I need your approval and I
Validation.
need
Hmm.
your validation. So it's still very self-centered. Um, and so, I've seen that too in leaders who just, you know, what you end up seeing is like they can become passive aggressive
Uh,
when things aren't going well because they can't deal with things. They have a hard time dealing with problems directly. So they'll like create turmoil or become passive aggressive, create triangulation because they're feel so ill-equipped to deal with things and challenges head on, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And so and again, they also are not empowering and growing people, or investing in their teams because they're primarily concerned with their own
Yeah.
validation. And then, what we all, hopefully will strive for is the secure, attachment style. And those are the leaders who, that's your, truly kind of transformational servant leaders, right? They create environments where people can flourish. They highly invest in their team members. They know them. They know their strengths. They know their growth opportunities. They give them feedback on a regular basis out of a desire for them to, continually improve and get better. They are the first to admit their own mistakes because they want to create that environment in which, hey, like we all mess up from time to time and none of us are perfect. And I'm not threatened by, admitting that I've made a mistake. And I want my team members to also be able to admit when they make mistakes. So that creates that psychological safety.
Yeah.
They're really and truly collaborative and open to perspectives. Again, because they don't feel threatened. They're secure enough in how they feel about themselves. And they generally kind of start from a place of trusting other people. Someone might hurt that trust, but that's where they're going to start, right? Is like kind of assuming positive intent. And so those are the secure leaders that can really build flourishing, psychologically safe teams that
Yeah.
are able to have that high performance.
Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad you brought that up, especially in the kind of leader that we can all become
Yes.
to serve others well. Jamie, I'm going to drop a word here that we don't
Mm-hmm.
hear often in the business world, and that is trauma. And I
Mm-hmm.
think trauma is it's misunderstood, and a lot of people would say, "No, that's not me." When, for a fact, most of us have experienced trauma at one point or another in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk about trauma, maybe even generational trauma,
Yeah.
or relational wounding
Mm-hmm.
from family of origin or bad marriages ending in divorce, whatever it is. Okay, talk about the
Mm-hmm.
kind of traumatic experiences that we need to really deal with and shift our awareness around that, because trauma may be something that holds us back in how we
Mm-hmm.
show up as
Mm-hmm.
leaders.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah. And I think that's part of that deconstruction process, right? Is to really understand where, yeah, and you're absolutely right. We all have experienced trauma.
Hmm.
Typically when most people think of trauma, they're thinking big things, right? Like, you know, significant, long-term, sustained, like physical abuse or,
Right.
or like sexual assault. Like they're thinking big trauma.
Hmm.
And yes, that's obviously trauma, but there are also like just kind of the small traumas that we all experience, and they're not really small because they have a big impact, right? But the traumas that we all experience in our lives because no one is perfect and we all hurt each other. Like,
Yeah.
we all make mistakes. And so I think that's part of deconstructing, your story and deconstructing your experiences is to look back and be honest about, the things that have been traumatic. And those are often those traumatic experiences, interactions that you've had with other people in your past are often the things that trigger the avoidant or anxious types of behaviors in in other areas, right? Or so like in your leadership role. So if someone reminds you of a person where you had a traumatic interaction with them at some point in the past, if that person reminds you of them, then the part of your kind of unconscious brain is picking that up. And if you don't have that awareness, it will run away with you,
Mm.
right? That will trigger you and you will show up in ways that you don't want to and you don't intend because you're reacting not to the person in front of you in the current situation. You're reacting to what happened, 10, 15, 20 years ago with this entirely other person, but there's something about that that reminds you of it
Mm.
and triggers the same type of response.
Mm.
And so yeah, I think it's always at play. And, if we don't have that awareness of the things that we've experienced that were traumatic to us. And that's another thing about trauma too. Like something that's traumatic for one person may not have been traumatic for another because we're all different.
Yeah.
But if something was traumatic for you, just acknowledging it and capturing an understanding of what that means for you and how it's impacted you.
Yeah. I love the work that you do, that you're it's funny. I'm a coach as well. I don't have your extensive psychology background. I'm not a PhD, but I've done enough. My master's was organizational behavior.
Hmm.
So, like you, I bring elements of mental health and mindset issues to leadership problems and challenges in the business
Hmm.
world. Right? Love that stuff. I know you geek out on that too, I'm
Yes.
sure. Yeah. Because I think that so much of the problems that we see in the world, the problems that we see in business, in workplaces, are related to leadership and how we view ourselves and how
Hmm.
we view others, right?
Yes.
And so,
Yep.
with that said, there's so much inner work that we need to do as leaders, and not
Hmm.
enough of us are doing the required inner work because we're thinking, leadership is all about, we want to get the answer to the bottom line, give me the steps. We want better meetings, better structures, better data, better systems, really, right?
Hmm.
And we forget about doing the inner work of building
Yeah.
self-awareness,
Hmm.
of understanding our most felt needs, how to overcome
Yeah.
those things that hold us back, those blind spots, maybe even having to
Hmm.
deal with something that happened to you
Hmm.
20, 30 years ago that you're still hanging on to,
Yeah.
right? So you have to do the work, the inner
Yes.
work. And I see that as so much relevant to the world of leadership now and how we need to,
Hmm.
to maintain at a high level, to be able to influence others. Like you mentioned, as a servant leader, we have to deal
Hmm.
with our quote our stuff first.
Yeah.
And so, having said that, if I don't do the inner work, and
Hmm.
I'm out there, maybe I'm super productive, super creative, right? Maybe I'm a high performer. I'm billing millions of dollars, et cetera. But what's the risk
Mm.
when someone like that, who may be a rock star, skips the who I am
Hmm.
work? I put that in air quotes, who I
Yeah.
am. What's the risk if they don't do that and
Hmm.
just think about the bottom line or the systems, or here's how we're going to get more
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah. I think if that person it becomes a leader, which often happens, right? Because people who are promoted into leadership roles are often individual contributors who are very high performers.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so if you have a situation like that where someone is like a rock star in terms of like the bottom line and meeting all the metrics and bringing in huge amounts of money and new customers, who's been great at working on their own, but then they move into a leadership role and they don't stop and reflect on who they are, then generally speaking, they're going to continue to operate in that same way, which one of my, an author, Susan Scott, calls this emotional wake,
Mm.
where they're not aware of their emotional wake. So how they're impacting their team members if they're leading, it's that mindset shift that needs to be made when you go from individual contributor to leader or manager, right? It's not about me anymore and me meeting my goals, but what can I do to really support my team and provide the conditions under which they can flourish and meet the goals and we can succeed together as a team. So it kind of shifts from this individual to kind of relationship focus,
Mm.
right? And if someone is not doing that inner work to understand the shift that's required and the change that's required, then they're going to probably wreak havoc
Oof.
on their teams, right? And create competition and backstabbing,
Mhm.
and if that's what they're rewarding and really emphasizing, they're probably again, you might have someone who looks like a Miranda Priestley who is concerned about themselves but and what they're continuing to do but can't invest in their people. So you might see people that report to them floundering and not getting what they need to grow and develop. So that's the risk. If someone like that doesn't do the inner work. And I think that there's a risk even if they don't move into a leadership role. I think that risk is probably more on the personal side of things for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I, I I would imagine that because I think the patterns that you see in the workplace are the same patterns that you see at home and with
Mm.
family and friends and intimate relationships. And if you have that kind of high driving, focused on myself, focused on my own goals, I imagine it's probably the same personally. And so if they're not in a leadership role, it might it might be okay for them in the workplace. Maybe it's helping them, but I wonder how it's impacting them personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to leave you guys with something practical before the show ends. So, Jamie, what's maybe that first small step that
Hmm.
that someone can take this week even to become a
Hmm.
more secure leader?
Yeah. Um, get some self-awareness. So, you know, if you want to, you can go to my website and take the assessment. drjamiegoff.com is my website. It's the Secure Leader Style Scan. It's, on the top menu bar, and it is free. That will give you maybe a little bit of insight. So start there. And then, outside of like buying the book and working through all of the exercises that are included there, I think try to begin to look back, at your experiences and how they're impacting you. And then as you gain that understanding, I think the first step is to begin to work on your own self-regulation. So that's the first thing I talk about in the book is like, okay, you have this understanding, you've worked to maybe deconstruct your story, understand where those beliefs come from. The first step you can take is working on your self-regulation, your
Mm.
emotional regulation. So, getting an understanding of what are those triggers? How do you react to those triggers? And then what are the things you can do in the moment to regulate yourself, to bring yourself back into a state of calm and presence when you're feeling yourself getting triggered. So there are a number of, exercises and strategies that you can use for that, but that's I think the first step is to gain self-awareness and then really begin to intentionally work on how you're regulating yourself in the face of triggers so that you can start showing up in the way that you need to. And that's what begins to rewrite some of the neural pathways that you've developed over time is through practicing self-regulation.
Yeah, so much of it is it falls under the quadrants of emotional intelligence,
Yes. Yeah,
and yeah,
absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is such a criteria for being an effective leader these days.
Yeah.
Tell us again where you can find that assessment. Gang, go get that assessment, and it's found at.
Dr. Jaime Goff, and that's DrJaimeGoff.com. And yeah, it's one of the menu items, the Secure Leader Style Scan, so
Excellent.
people can grab that there.
Excellent. Jamie, as we wind down here, is there any question that you wish I had asked?
I think, sometimes I think people might be thinking like, oh, if this is an attachment style that I have and it was developed in, early childhood, can I change?
Mm,
And hopefully the listeners have gotten the message that yes, you can, and that is the beauty of neuroplasticity, is that we are not, we're not a prisoner to the previous patterns and the neural pathways that exist today. We have the power to begin changing those. We have the power to become more secure in the way that we show up in our personal and professional relationships and as leaders. And so I think I just want people to be encouraged and to have that hope, because, you don't have to stay anxious or avoidant. I don't think I did. I think I was able to become a more secure leader, and I've seen other people do it too.
that's great. That's great. All right, strap on your seatbelt. Here we go.
Okay.
We have arrived at our speed round. I don't want you to get a whiplash. So, what makes you smile these days?
Oh, I am so excited because I'm on my own again, in terms of like self-employed, like fully dedicated. Just this is my first week of being like independent, self-employed, fully dedicating myself to this work and to my business. And so that's what's been making me smile, because I'm so excited to just expand the things I've been doing and get started on the second book. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. All right. So, if you weren't doing the work that you do now, psychologist, executive coaching, speaker, author, what would you have chosen for a profession?
I would be a vet.
Oh, okay. You love animals.
I love animals. So I have a dog and a cat, and they're also two things that make me smile a lot these days. Well, all the time. But yeah, I love animals. Any animals. I always joke that if I didn't live in a city, and my husband probably puts some restraint on me, I would have all kinds of animals. Just donkeys, goats, dogs, cats, whatever.
It's never late to start. So,
One day, one day.
you need a few acres behind
Yes.
the house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. How do you decompress after a hard day's work?
Exercise. So I'm a big Orange Theory
Mm,
fitness person. So I've been doing Orange Theory for, it's like an advertisement for Orange Theory. But I really love it. It's a group class and I have friends there. So it's nice to just go to the gym, get some good sweating in,
yeah.
talk to friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my gym routine. Because I have a back issue, now I go get in the pool with plastic
Mm,
dumbbells, and I run the length of the pool with
yeah.
plastic dumbbells under the water for resistance.
Ooh, yeah.
And I run about 30 laps. My heart is pumping like crazy. And not only that, but my muscles are still toned.
Yeah.
And then I hop out of the pool, I go to the jacuzzi, get really hot in there, and then I jump in the ice bath.
Do a cold plunge.
A
Oh,
cold
yeah.
plunge right after, and then I rotate that, and then I end with a sauna, and boom, I'm out of there, and that's like 45
Love
minute
it.
workout right there.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, craziest thing you've ever done?
Oh, I can't remember what it's actually called. I don't know how crazy it is, but in England, in Cornwall, so like on the like coast, which is a very rocky coast, I jumped off the cliffs into the ocean.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that was scary, and a lot of fun. I was like, am I going to hit a seal? Because there were all kinds of seals around. But yeah, so like jumping, I mean, we had a guide, of course, so knew all the places where it was safe to do that. But yeah, jumping off the cliffs, into the ocean was, and the water was cold. So that was like a cold plunge too.
Yeah. All right, I got two more questions. Name
Okay.
a person dead or
Mhm.
alive you would like to have dinner with.
I met this person and actually attended some training with her, and it's Sue Johnson. She's passed away in the past few years, but she is the founder of created emotionally focused therapy, which is kind of the attachment-based therapy for couples. And she's been so influential in kind of how I see relationships. And there are little pieces of it that, kind of inform what I'm doing now with leaders too. But I would have just loved to be able to have a really in-depth conversation with her. She was an incredible person.
That's good. Well, we end on sort of a serious note. For you to tell us what is your biggest hope in the day and age that we're in.
Mm,
What's your biggest hope for really for 2026? Because we're recording this November 2025.
yeah. I hope that, and part of the reason, like bringing kind of this message about our attachment styles and secure leadership, because I really see so many people, leaders in the public eye operating out of anxious and avoidant styles, and which I think is creating and so many of the challenges that we're facing on every level, right? Like teams, businesses, nations, world, like so many issues. And I just hope I can bring a little bit of value or make a little bit of impact
Mm,
kind of at a, grassroots level to help people see how important it is to become more secure because we have to start somewhere. And yeah, I just hope I can just do a little something
yeah.
to bring more security because it's also, one of I think that all behavior makes sense in context. So when I look at, people who are in the public eye and I'm seeing them behave in these really unhealthy ways in terms of leadership, and it just, for me, I have empathy for them. And I always wonder, like, what's going on in their lives that they feel like they have to show up in this way? And if only they could, have someone to, talk with them about this.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. I just hope I can make a little bit of an impact to help people see that, they're worth more
Yeah.
and they deserve more for themselves and for others.
Yeah. Well, I want to just affirm you that you are doing it. You wrote the book. We're having these conversations. We have to continue to elevate the awareness to break out of these patterns that
Hmm.
may be toxic for us and we don't know it. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
continue to do your great work. That's fantastic. All right, Jamie, you're off the hot seat. So
Okay. Thank you
um,
so much, Marcel.
we bring it home with two questions. And the first one is, okay, I'm a leader. I want to lead with more love and care.
Mm,
I want to help people out. How do I do it day in and day out?
mm. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I mean, I think that in order to love others well, you have to first, you need to love yourself
Yeah.
and, have that belief that because we're all human, we deserve love and dignity and care. And kind of starting with that belief that we're all worthy, including myself, and I have to
Mm,
treat myself in that way. And when I treat myself in that way, and I know I'm deserving of these things, then I have the capacity to give that to others as well.
mm,
Um, so yeah, and that's not, I don't know. I don't know how like practical that is because that's a hard thing, right? And it takes time and a lot of effort. So it's not an easy, quick solution. But I don't know that there are really easy, quick solutions.
mm-mm.
And I mean, I do think there are things that as a leader you can do on a daily basis to communicate love, and that's just checking in with your people, ask them how they're doing, and mean it, and take the time to listen. Know them as people first and employees second, and that will carry you and them a long way too.
Yeah.
So in terms of a practical piece.
Yeah, that's good. But you're right that the road to becoming a more self-aware, more secure leader, there's no shortcuts to it, because we're talking about potentially a lifetime of things we need to deal with and overcome.
And it's a continuous journey. I mean,
It's
you
a
have
journey.
to maintain it, right? So
Right.
even if you have it, you still have to maintain it.
Yeah. Yeah. You never stop learning, and you have to get into the idea, the understanding that leadership is a journey, that it's an evolutionary process. It's your own evolution, and you have to keep learning and growing.
Yeah.
Times change. We have to adapt. New generations coming up with different needs. We have to adapt to that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Bring us home. What's that one thing that you want us to take away from this conversation?
I think that we are in, times of incredible change and increasing demands, right? Where we're expected as leaders and teams to like move quickly. And I think to move fast, we have to first move slow. And so if you want to, I kind of think of leadership and secure leadership as providing calm in the storm and courage for the journey. And we need to do that for ourselves and our teams.
Yeah, that's good. I want to encourage you guys listening. As you hear Jamie and I talk, we talk about these lifelong things that we may have to overcome. Okay, don't be discouraged by that. Don't think of it like, oh, I'm staring up at Mount Everest. Okay, every journey starts with one first step, and determine what that is for you. And the great way to do it is go to Jamie's website and take that assessment to get perspective into yourself. Self-understanding. Understand how you operate, because that's going to clue you in on so many things. And now you can start the road to your development, right? And maybe some of it before the development comes the road to your healing. And once you have healed and recovered from whatever it is that you need to recover from, then you can now start the journey of becoming a great leader. Okay? All right. The book, again, is called The Secure Leader. Jimmy, where can people go to connect with you, find out about your work? And we already mentioned the website. I say it again. Yeah. But, if somebody wants to book you for a speaking engagement, what's the best place to go?
Yeah. So definitely my website, drjamiegoff.com. And there's a form, there that people can fill out if they are curious, and also information about the types of workshops and things I do in my coaching. They can also email me. So my email address is Jaime, Jaime, at drjamiegoff.com. Or I'm most active on LinkedIn. So it's just Dr. Jaime Goff / LinkedIn. They can find me there. I try to post pretty regularly. And or they can also connect with me and message me on LinkedIn as well.
This is so much fun and so rich and rewarding. You are a wealth of information, but you are so real too. And that's, I think we all learned from you today. So thank you so much for blessing us with your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Marcel. I enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Gang, for Jaime Goff and yours truly, remember, in the end, love wins. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Love in Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, subscribe, and leave us a review. Until next time, don't forget, the future of leadership is love in action. Believe it, practice it, and watch your leadership and business flourish.